everybody, welcome to Growing Up Geek, the weekly podcast for geek entertainment and nostalgia. My name is Brad, and I am joined by my brother Rob.
Hey, how's it going? This week we're going to be talking about the movie Sunshine. It was just released on DVD, directed by Danny Boyle, written by Alex Garland, and starring Cillian Murphy. And
Exactly.
if those three people sound familiar, they should, because they were the team behind the movie 28 Days Later, kind of a cult classic zombie movie that more or less introduced the ever-so-famous running zombie.
Exactly. Actually, they're not zombies. They're just raged-up humanoids.
Oh, okay, raged-up humanoids. That
that's okay.
Infected humanoids.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'll forgive you.
Okay, thanks. The premise of the movie is that you have, in the year 2050...
Yeah, it's about 50 years in the future.
You have the crew of the Icarus II is sent towards the sun to try and reignite the sun because it is dying. And the reason why it's Icarus II is because the Icarus I was a ship that went up before them and was never heard from again. Everything starts off great, and as with these types of movies, horror and hilarity ensues. There it is.
I actually like this movie quite a bit.
Oh, yeah?
I am a science fiction fan. I told somebody at work about this movie, and they said, "Oh, it's science fiction." So I realized right off the bat that there are those who won't like science fiction. This is that kind of film, obviously. It's set in the future, and it's inspired by movies like Alien, Sphere, The Abyss, maybe Event Horizon. But it's a very well-made science fiction movie, and especially musically and visually, I thought that was very well put together piece of work. They really set up the sun and space as this sort of awesome thing, and a lot of the crew are really interested in the beauty of the sun, and yet, as we know, it's dangerous to even try to get near it or look at it. Another thing I really liked about it is that there are some really weighty decisions that have to be made by the crew of the Icarus II. And I sort of noticed after some of these scenes were finished that I was finally breathing again, because I was kind of like holding my breath through these moments. Real human drama comes out on this somewhat desperate mission. And so for that, I thought it was really quality, as science fiction films go, very good. One big downside, I think, and really the only thing I can say, is that the ending of this film will probably polarize the audience. I could see some people really liking it, some people really being confused by it. Myself, personally, I was a little bit put off by the ending, and I won't go into detail because we're not going to spoil anything, but I found it to be a little bit confusing, and the director's commentary clarified some of that for me, but it wasn't entirely a wanted series of events.
Okay. Really quick, would you say a person should buy this movie, rent it, or avoid it?
Yeah, I was trying to think of if we should have a rating system of love it, gotta have it, the Cold Stone degree of reviewing. But no, I think that this movie would definitely be worth a rental, particularly if you like science fiction. It is a quality science fiction film. It is by Danny Boyle, and the sort of the desperate themes found in 28 Days Later are definitely found here.
Okay.
I would say that if you can see this movie in a dollar theater, I would recommend that, because visually there is just some stunning imagery. There's some really nice put together stuff, and I'm sure the sound and the music would be 10 times better in the theater. There is sort of an electronica / rock score here that I really dug, particularly a scene where they're watching Mercury pass in front of the sun. And it goes into this sort of lo-fi kind of ambient electronic beat, and I thought that was a great combination of a modern kind of sound with this very kind of awesome space imagery. But yeah, what did you think?
I liked it.
Okay.
It was a good movie.
You didn't gotta have it?
I don't gotta have it. It's definitely up there with 28 Days Later in both how enjoyable it is, but in the same way as 28 Days Later, there's this kind of you can't wholeheartedly recommend it to a person just because there's some things that you kind of have to bite your tongue and endure. I'll start off with what I liked about the movie.
Sure.
aren't that many like true science fiction movies out there
Sure.
anymore. You know, you take a look at what we typically call science fiction, and those usually have to have like aliens running around in them, or some degree of, you know, like zombie, or the truth is that isn't actually science fiction. That's science fiction fantasy. You know, there's a part of it is completely just fabricated. This is true science fiction. This movie is like, okay, given this scenario, here's what would really have to happen, and people would have to deal with these kinds of situations, and this is most likely what the ship would look like and everything like that. It's realistic, you know, in that sense. Like, it could technically really happen. The ominous power of the sun is really well done, because they establish, like, here's this thing that kills people from Earth, you know? So you're flying closer and closer and closer to it, and it's just going to get more and more dangerous. And so, yeah, you're feeling that danger, that, like, just beyond the barrier that protects their ship, you know, is just total annihilation. So you feel that there's this tenseness. There's a lot of, it's really well done, like, claustrophobic sense in this movie. This feeling of isolation because they can't communicate with the Earth after a certain point. Just it has all the makings of a great, you know, horror classic. So it's definitely worth people looking at. The visuals are amazing, on par, I'd say, with Hollywood, considering that this is an independent movie and made in Britain.
28 Days Later is shot on video and sort of had this very kind of homemade look to it, which a lot of people found to be an attractive part of that film. This, on the other hand, is like his high-budget work.
Right. What he decided to do was specifically go for this kind of golden color palette, you know? It sets itself apart visually from other movies, and that I definitely have to hand over to Danny Boyle. But the movie starts strong. Like you said, there's tough decisions that have to be made. They're believable decisions.
Right.
You say, I can see why this, you know, had to happen. But there's a certain point, a few minutes after one of their first major mistakes occurs, that I just found myself going, what? You know? I literally paused the movie, rewound it, and had to watch it again to try and figure out what went wrong. You know, I gotta say, like, I kind of, for the rest of the movie, just, you know, as things got progressively worse, I kind of was just left with that feeling like, well, this stupid thing just happened to happen that, you know, makes this all possible. And it lost its believability a bit there.
Right.
A lot of people talk about the somewhat twist towards the end.
Right, which we won't go into in serious detail, but, you know, we'll try to dance around it.
We'll dance around what actually happens, but I'd heard a lot of complaints, and honestly, I didn't find it to be so big of a problem.
So there you go.
It was more believable to me than a lot of the problems that occur in the middle of the film. I'd say out of everything in the movie, what they get dead on is selling the sun. Because not only, as they address in the movie, is it hot, but the gravity there creates gaps that human logic can't account for. You know, the gravity of the sun can, like, theoretically begin to distort time.
It's interesting you said that you found trouble with some of the elements in the center of the film and not so much in the ending. The ending events for me felt like the movie kind of lifted off from its reality into something more fantastical, if I can use that word. And I guess that may be the danger of a science fiction film of any kind, is that when you are going to attempt to explain everything realistically, you need to maintain those rules, or else, you know, the audience won't be with you anymore. And I guess it depends on how well people buy into these explanations as to how much they enjoy the film.
Right. I mean, I've heard people who couldn't even buy the initial premise of the film, which is, you know, reigniting the sun. Seriously. You know,
and if that's too much for you, get off now. Yeah, get off this boat now. Speaking to the realism, I like the explanation that they had actually mined all of the Earth's nuclear material and had put them into the equivalent of 8 atomic bombs. I mean, when you think about that, that is awesome right there. And they're taking that payload, that they call it, and they're going to deliver that into the sun. I mean, just the idea, I think, is a very cool idea.
Oh, one thing I really want to talk about, Cillian Murphy, or Cillian Murphy, however you say his name.
Yeah.
Really good job, and I gotta say, I really enjoy watching him. He's he's been in some bad movies, but he always pulls his own weight as a believable character. He's more than just a pretty face. He can actually be pretty scary at times.
Yeah, Amber and it's funny you said pretty face because I think Amber really likes movies with Cillian in them, and so we've watched a lot of his movies since 28 Days Later, and she assures me that it's purely admiration of his acting skills, so I'll go along with it for now. But yeah, I mean, I think he's really good, and we even watched Breakfast on Pluto.
Yeah, Red Eye, he was in that.
Oh, Red Eye was excellent. Batman Begins, of course, he was in it. Yeah, I agree with you. I think he's a terrific actor, and he does a very good job in this film.
Everybody's pulling their own weight. It just so happens that he has a very important role to play, so it's good. And as controversial as maybe that ending is, I'll say I was satisfied with it.
Oh, I'm glad, and see, I'm never disappointed when someone enjoys a movie. I recently saw this movie Chum Scrubber, and I absolutely hated it. And I don't feel that way about movies very often, but I hated this movie, and it was recommended to me by someone who really loved it, and then I talked to someone else who really loved it, and I have to say, I'm happy for them. Go and be at peace. It's like, I'm glad that people liked it. And I think Amber liked the ending better than I did. But, again, I'm happy for you. I personally had found it a little bit of a shift that was a little bit unwanted.
Yeah, I guess it's weird that, we both kind of have our reservations about the movie, but it's for completely different reasons.
Yeah. Would you say you recommend it in the end?
Yeah, in the end, I'd definitely recommend it. It's definitely a unique movie. You aren't going to find many like it. It could make for a good evening if you're with your friends or your family and you just are looking for a good sci-fi suspense thriller. Right. Check this movie out. It might actually be worth owning just because it's so unique.
I can definitely say that at no point in the movie were Amber and I bored. It held our interest, and sometimes it held it to an excruciating level where we were really, just on the edge of our seats. And so I highly recommend it.
Yeah,
there you go.
Me too.
And that's going to sum it up for this week. If you'd like to send us an email, you may do so. Our email address is mail@growing-up-geek.com. Send us some of your geeky memories or recommendations for DVDs that you've seen that you liked. We'd love to hear from you. That's going to be it for this week. I am Brad.
And I'm Rob.
And we'll see you later.